Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Assistive and Instructional Technology Overview. My name is Dr. Tucker. I'm an associate professor in the Special Ed Department, and I am sharing this presentation from the lens of an assistive technology specialist. So here are the learning goals for our overview today is I would like you to be able to identify how assistive technology can promote equity and access within the classroom and really within your own subject area, within your practice. Integrating assistive technology is so crucial for student success. And so thinking about how you as the teacher can promote equity and access through that, and maybe it's modeling the use of the technology or integrating it within your practice. And then also you're going to take a moment and analyze how assistive technology can be integrated within the different subject areas, within the subject area that you practice, to increase student access to the content area curriculum. So let's dive in. So to give you a little bit of a roadmap, I'm going to start off with a review of what is assistive technology. I will give a short review of universal design for learning as well, which is crucial to student success. I will share the SET framework, which is how we analyze and match assistive technology tools to students. And then I'm going to share a lot of tools, but I'm going to separate them by tasks and then tools. When you do see an I symbol, I will model the tool for you. And I do want you to think as I'm modeling this tool, right? What are the pros? What are the cons? And how can this tool be utilized to increase access to the content? I'm hoping that the I can also help you to remember, right? If you're like, oh, Tucker showed me this thing in that video, it'll hopefully help you trigger that memory for when you're in the field and you're like, what was that thing? Again, so here's our flow. I'll lay the foundation. I'm going to share the tasks and tools. I will do a quick demonstration, and then we're just going to repeat. There will be times for you where I'm going to ask you to pause and engage with some of the tools, so engage with them at your level of comfort, but I just want you to be able to go in. So everything on this presentation is an interactive link, so you can go in and again engage with the content, but try some of these tools out. That's the goal. Think of this more as like a playground. So there will be times where I will ask you to pause the video and then try some of these tools out. So first of all, I want to share the definition of assistive technology. And so this is under IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And that was kind of recertified in 2004. But the official definition is that any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially, off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of children with disabilities. And what I want to highlight here is that according to this definition, there's nothing to do with needing to be plugged in on an iPad, charged. Assistive technology can be a slant board for a student. Assistive technology can also be like a fidget if a student needs a fidget in order to increase, maintain, or improve their functional capabilities. If this fidget helps me to then stay focused in class, it's considered assistive technology for me. So that's really important to think about as we're going through these, is that assistive technology, sometimes I feel like the technology part of the definition almost does us a disservice because it really can be so many things. And you'll also notice here is that it doesn't require an evaluation. So really anyone can try assistive technology with the student, and it will work, and it's considered assistive technology, again, as long as it increases, maintains, or improves the functional capabilities. And that kind of phrase is my mantra, really. So always think about how can we support student functional capabilities. So I also have a link here to the Assistive Technology Guidelines. These are specific to Connecticut, and they were published in 2013. Rumor has it there are some new ones coming out, but I don't know. And then also here's the definition of universal design for learning. And one of the reasons I'm highlighting universal design is that different from differentiated instruction, if we design our classrooms and support universal design for learning, it's this idea that we can support a wide variety of learners automatically in our classroom. And one of the biggest individuals or moguls in the field of universal design for learning uses this analogy. UDL is kind of like you're having a dinner party, right? So if you're inviting 10 guests with a differentiated instruction model, you're asking each guest, okay, what are your dietary restrictions, what are your preferences, and you have one gluten-free, one vegan, one vegetarian, right? And so then you're now making 10 separate meals for your 10 separate guests to ensure that everyone gets what they need. That's differentiated instruction. However, if we take a universal design approach, before we even know our 10 guests, as I'm getting ready for my dinner party, if I create a buffet and I have gluten-free options, vegan options, pescatarian options, I have everything. Now, no matter who comes to my dinner party, I have an option for everyone, and everyone gets to access it. And I'm not siloing people into but this is the only thing that you can eat. So I love that analogy of universal design for learning because it really allows us to think about how do we develop our learning so that anyone who comes to our class can interact and access it equitably. Ooh. So here are the Universal Design for Learning guidelines. This is on the left is one of my favorite cartoons. And so it really just kind of highlights this concept of universal design for learning with the gentleman shoveling the stairs. And the idea is if we shovel the ramp first, everyone can get on. So why do we need to do the stairs first and then the ramp? And that's kind of that ableist mindset that sometimes our society has. So trying to change that. These guidelines, this screenshot is very overwhelming, so I apologize, but if you click, it brings you to the CAST, which is the organization that founded Universal Design for Learning, and it is based out of brain research. So the three areas of the brain where learning occurs, right? So we have the affective networks, the recognition networks, and the strategic networks, and those are also where the three principles of Universal Design for Learning originate. So we have multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action expression. So if I have multiple options of how to engage with my material, you can read it, you can watch the video, you can listen to the podcast. And then for engagement, I pull in some fun games, I have a Kahoot. And then for action expression, I say you can type, you can handwrite, you can video record, or you can record a podcast, right? So the biggest thing for me is providing options within Universal Design for Learning. And I love at the bottom here, what is the goal? The goal is for expert learners who are purposeful and motivated, resourceful and knowledgeable, and strategic and goal-directed. And who wouldn't say that that was our goal of school in general? So this framework really is my mantra. This is how I live, this is how I teach. And I use this constantly within my practice. In higher ed, I'm living a lot in the engagement piece, right? How do I then support adult learners in engaging in their learning? So if you're not as familiar with UDL guidelines, peruse the website because it's awesome. And then finally, so now I'm kind of I went big, and then now I'm narrowing up to assistive technology. The SEP framework was created by an amazing woman named Joy Zabala, and The reason that we utilize the framework, which is very flexible, is to ensure that we don't think about the tools first. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with smart boards, right? So when smart boards came out, it was like every district was like, yes, everybody gets a smart board. And we made this huge investment, and every classroom got a smart board, but no one budgeted for teacher training. So no teachers knew how to use it. And then I also went into some classrooms where like the kindergarten board was mounted in the middle of the wall and like the little kiddos couldn't reach it. And so that's not thinking about the student first, that's thinking about the tools first. And so if we utilize this framework, it helps us to create a person-centered decision making or a classroom-centered decision making. So what are the students' current abilities? What are their special needs? What's the functional area of concern? What are they having difficulty with? What's the environment, right? Is it in the classroom? Is it in the resource room? What activities can other students do that this student cannot currently participate in? And then how do we enable that? Does the student have any access to any current technology? And this is where I am excited about our current state in the field because we do have a lot of access to at least Chromebooks and internet, which gives us at least a foundation to work with. This is one of the most important, is I find narrowing down the tasks. So what specifically does the student have difficulty with? Is it the act of writing? Is it writing sentences? Is it lining up the math equations? So what is it? So looking at that through like error analysis is really important. What activities is the student expected to do, and what would success look like? And then here's the tools, right? So that's what I'm going to show you today. But again, we want to make sure they are student-centered, and we can consider tools on this no, low to high tech continuum. And then I think that this image is very poignant and very popular, but equality versus equity, right? And thinking about oftentimes many of our classrooms currently are set up so that there's inequity for many of our students. And oftentimes there's organizational barriers, which are represented by the fence and the blocks. And so oftentimes as teachers, we will then try to accommodate or modify or differentiate for students, which then shows the blocks, right? But what I'm going to kind of propose and what Universal Design for Learning supports is that can we remove the barriers altogether? So can we change the fence? Can the fence be see-through so now we don't need to accommodate as much? And that's what Universal Design for Learning is hoping to do, removing some of the learning barriers. There's not as much that we can control all around. And that's what many of these tools providing options within your classrooms will help remove some barriers for students. So let's get started. So we're going to focus again on the tasks. So I've kind of broken it out. We'll do reading, writing, math, engagement, and executive functioning. I'm going to go through them quickly because there's a lot. And please know I'm like just scratching the surface. So there might be tools that you're using in your classroom. Awesome. But I'm just kind of picked a collection of tools to share and demonstrate with you. And so one of the biggest tasks, I'd say, within classrooms across the content areas is reading an article, generally with electronic text. And so students in a variety of different areas have difficulty with this. Decoding challenges, vocabulary challenges, language challenges, many different populations of students have difficulty with reading text. And so here what I want to highlight again is these amazing tools. So the first one is Immersive Reader. So I have linked on here, and I'm just going to pull up. So Immersive Reader is built into Microsoft Word. So if your students do have Microsoft Word, it actually is available within the the View tab, right? And then you select Immersive Reader. And so it really is cool because it allows you to kind of change the background. You can listen to the text. And I know I'm talking about reading, but this can help students to edit their own writing, right? Listen to their work after they read it. There's also focus lines. You can increase the text spacing. It really can be very helpful. Um, the other tool that I have on here, so I just showed you Immersive Reader. The other one is Read and Write for Google. And I will say that this one is probably the most popular tool that is available within schools. This is this little toolbar up here. There is a free and a paid version. Generally, most schools have the free version, and that's what I have right now. My favorite feature on here, this is called the hover speech. I don't think my sound is going to work, but when I turn on the hover speech, um, you can tell by the highlighting. So it will highlight wherever I put my cursor, which is really nice because I don't need to highlight and click read. The other thing though is I could just start here and it will, ooh, I can highlight and it will read it for me. I can slow down the voice, I can change the voice. And what I really like here is that it highlights the sentence and it highlights the word. And so it helps a student keep track of what's being read and where they are on the screen. And this is, again, available across many, many schools. And so if I'm teaching, right, and I'm going over content, modeling, like, okay, let's use Read and Write for Google to listen to the directions to this assignment in Google Docs, right? And so modeling that as the teacher provides, an acceptance and an awareness of like, this is a tool that's an option. Use this tool as an option. So that's Read and Write for Google and Immersive Reader. So those are kind of two options there. What I also have here, I know iPads are not as popular, but if you are working in like a high school setting, your phones will built in. I'm using an iPhone as a screenshot there, but they will read any text. And so under accessibility, so if you have, an article or if a student is accessing text on their phone, they can then listen to it on their phone. And this is one of my primary methods of listening to content. I listen to books, articles on my phone, and I use this speak selection. You will be able to hear this, so I will play this on my phone here. Um, oh, of course, my article isn't going to pull up that I had prepped so well. Okay, so I have a recipe on here right now. And so once I pull up the recipe, and I'm on Safari, so I used this Safari reader here, which makes it much better because look at how crazy the recipe page is. But if I hit those little A's and do show reader, it makes it so much better. And here, if I do two finger swipe down,
broccoli beef published February 17th, 2015, updated July 5th, 2021. Soup slow cooker broccoli beef. The sweet savory.
clearly I was looking up a broccoli beef recipe, but you can see I think that voice is really high quality, and that any phone will read that out loud. And so there's this image is a link to directions to turn that on. I also then wanted to put this here again because Read and Write for Google is most likely the most accessible tool in the Connecticut schools. And so this is a link to a YouTube playlist of all the features that are available. If the toolbar, oops, let me turn it on like this. If the toolbar has grayed out items like mine, that means it's the free one. If it does have everything is the same dark gray, that means you have the full one. And there's so many features on here. But here you can see that I have the free one. Okay, so to continue on and talking about reading, Rewordify is one of my favorites. What this website does, and I'm going to provide multiple tools to differentiate and modify content. But Rewordify will then change the difficulty level of reading content. And what I really like about it is that it gives you this option of how to present the content. So there's this style where it will then have the easier word, and when you click over it, it will then give you the original word and you can listen to it. You can. It says loathe. Or you can have the more challenging word, and then you can click on it and it has the simpler word. I think the inline is very confusing, at least for me visually, but I also like this 2-column. This is kind of like the No Fear Shakespeare way, where you have the original text and then the rewordified. What I also really like here is acknowledging that we still need to know the vocabulary. But what we don't want to do is have the vocabulary be a barrier to the students reading and engaging with the content. So here, from the words that you have taken out and simplified, the students can then engage with them separately, like pre-teach or have a vocabulary list or create a quiz. So I love this tool. And a lot of this is free. So this is read and write, Rewordify. And you can do entire websites or just copy and paste text in here. And this other one that I love, so now this is we're taking a turn to students with more significant needs. If you do have students who need, again, more significant support, this is one of my favorite resources. It's the online adapted literature and lessons, the Paul V. Sherlock Center. So what this does is they have like a wide variety of classic literature, current literature that they have then modified. And here's, for example, The Bad Case of Stripes, which might be very popular to you. So they have a lesson plan, which then shows kind of a multisensory approach and how to then support kind of the teaching of that. But then they also have, here's the book. So they're using the high quality pictures, but they've modified the content. In addition to that, it is symbol supported. So Bad Case of Stripes, you might be like, oh, like that's pretty typical. But they also have like Romeo and Juliet. And this one is modified also, which is pretty amazing. I didn't search that very well. Okay, but believe me, it's there. So they have a lot of resources. You can do all different filter by resources. Here's the key that they have here. So they have resources specifically for students with cortical visual impairment, which is becoming kind of an increasing diagnosis. So many different options. It really is great. They also have adapted science lessons on here as well, which is just amazing. So sorry, I'm going all over the place. Learning new concepts and vocabulary. I'm sure some of you have experienced Pear Deck. This was very popular during COVID. But I will say that Flowcabulary is probably one of my favorites because it provides really engaging music to challenging concepts. So here, this is area and perimeter. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, but if you can't, here. So So you can also turn on the discuss button, so it will then automatically pause. There is a free version. It is limited. This is paid, but there's vocabulary cards, a game. They break it down, a quiz. There's a lyric lab, but it has a variety of different concepts through language arts, math, social studies, science, like you name it. But I'm dating myself, but like when I was growing up, there was like Schoolhouse Rock, which was like really hokey. But this music is much better. And Pear Deck is interactive. It's a plug-in to Google Slides. Quizlet is kind of a tried and true support. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, but it really can be so helpful. But I also want to share with you Knowledge AI. This one has come out, and what it allows you to do is add in a YouTube video or a resource. So if it's a PDF, I've put in videos that I've recorded, and what it will do is it will create an interactive video where it stops and asks a variety of different questions. It will develop a quiz based on the content. It develops a transcription. There is a glossary, a summary. So it does all of this automatically. So once you upload the video, you do need to double check it. You need to be the human in the loop, because it is not perfect by any means, but it can get you started. What I also really like is that they have project-based activities. So they will give you some ideas of higher order questions, more challenging activities to extend the learning based on the content. They have a crossword puzzle. Ooh, my computer's having a hard time. And then a find the word. So I really like this resource. I'm pretty sure in the full version you can add it to Google Classroom, but I use this sparingly. Again, it's not perfect, but it does provide some cool interactive things. More options to differentiate. So I am sharing some AI, knowledge AI, obviously, artificial intelligence. Diffit and Magic School also utilize artificial intelligence. Diffit uses that to then modify. So I can copy and paste text, I can add a PDF, or I can just say, like, give me the American Revolution. And this one only goes down to second grade. This one doesn't give it to me as low, but let's see. So I can add any topic in any grade level and it will give me information, but I can also kind of put content in for it to modify. That might take a little while because my computer is having a hard time. But yeah, you can create resources. It's giving you all these tips as you're going. But this is one of the most popular tools used by teachers. So here's the American Revolution, right? And again, I've got the free version, so we need to sign in. But there's a summary, there's keywords, there's also multiple choice questions, and I just like typed it in. And then there's also student activities on the side. Really is amazing. And the other one is Magic School AI. I have heard there are a couple of districts who do utilize Magic School AI. And this one has it can be overwhelming because there's a lot of resources on here. But what I want to focus on here is the text scaffolder. So this one does allow you to then this grade level you can go all the way down. I don't know about the pre-K one, but it does give you you can go down to kindergarten and you can ask questions, you can attach a document, and it will then modify it here. So there's a lot of really cool resources here on Magic School AI. And so what I also did is, if you're like, oh my God, what is this woman doing? I'm so overwhelmed. I just put some resources here if you want to then explore with differentiating or listening. So I just kind of gave you topics, like if you were a special ed teacher in a chemistry class and you needed to modify chemical reactions at a kindergarten level. So I gave you a chemical reactions article. Or if you are teaching English and you have Fahrenheit 451 and you have a student in your class reading, you're teaching seventh grade and they're reading at a third grade level, what could you do? So I just gave you content to manipulate, because what I would like you to do is pause, explore at least one of the tools on slides 12 to 17, consider how the tool can be integrated within your content area, analyze how the tool supports UDL and removes barriers for students, and jot that down in your notes. So pause here, jot it down in your notes to then submit afterwards, but engage with one of the tools. Go, if you feel comfortable creating a free account. If not, just peruse, but play around with at least one. Pause here. And now we start again. Okay, so now we're moving on to writing. And this is, again, a very popular task. We're writing an essay, open responses, and now writing math in terms of share your thinking, right? In mathematics, writing is an increased expectation because students are showing their thinking. So we have idea generation could be an issue, sentence construction, spelling, grammar, like you name it, kids can have trouble with it. So there's a lot of writing tools. I'm just going to show you again a couple of them and talk about them. MindMeister, I will say, is one of my favorite. This is a pretty overwhelming mind map, but I used this to organize like my research as a researcher. But this kind of gives you the potential as to where you can go. But you can like move these things, but you can add different bubbles and color code them, if you wanted to create a template for students or to help them brainstorm. Bubble.us is a free one. I'd say that like this one is probably one of the most popular. You can, now they have templates, which is pretty cool. So you can start off with a life cycle template, and we can talk about a butterfly life cycle. And then we can choose something else and move on there, which is pretty cool. Okay. I'm running out of time, so I don't want to go too fast. So that's the pre-writing stage. When it comes to drafting, voice typing is very popular. What I want to emphasize, though, is that students need to be taught how to dictate. Dictating a text message is much different from dictating your science homework. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I find, is that students they just like brain dump into the computer and get frustrated. It is a skill. I dictate and you need to think with punctuation, right? Today, comma, I am really excited to vote, exclamation point, right? So you need to think with punctuation. So it's a skill. And I find students give up very easily when they just need to learn the skill and they put pressure on themselves. There is word prediction on iPads, which is great. Co-Writer was an amazing word prediction support. It is now built into Read and Write for Google. So if you have the full version of that, there is word prediction that is built into many tools that we already utilize. Editing and revising, Grammarly is like number one. I use that all the time. I love looking at my Grammarly stats. And I use the free version, and it will give me like, overall, your tone is happy. However, this is what your errors are. Paper Rater is another good quick one to look at like editing and plagiarizing. Book Creator, I absolutely love. This can be a really nice, simple way to publish. It just allows students to very quickly create a book and share it on your bookshelf as a teacher. And the other one that I wanted to share is Pixin. Oh, it didn't like that. They have an avatar maker thing. It didn't like that link. But what this allows you to do is create custom avatars and create comics. So I have a teacher who allows her students to create custom avatars, and she does like social stories using this, but students have themselves represented. And it allows for a variety of different abilities, skin colors, cultural supports. So, like, it really is a very cool tool that allows you to then, again, create a comic and interact. You can create a comic. Oop, come on. Ooh, there's my comic. Okay. Okay. For math, the solving equations or writing on PDFs in terms of an iPad or an iOS support. Oh my goodness gracious, SnapType. This is a free version, but this allows you to take a picture of a worksheet and add text anywhere. When people say, like, I have an iPad, what should I download? SnapType is like my first one. I love it for math because there's no formatting, so it allows you to carry, make fractions. Panther Math Paper is a graph paper grid based word processor essentially. So it's a word processor for math. What I love about this tool is though it's challenging, it allows a student to grow from basic arithmetic all the way through to pre-calculus. So it's worth the investment for a student to learn. It's $20 on an iPad, but if you have a student with a physical disability, cognitively advanced, it's a great investment. And Cami is really one of my favorites in terms of accessing PDFs. So I have a math worksheet, and Cami does allow me to add a text box, right? So I can then add my text boxes anywhere I want to. And I can also draw, so it gives me some flexibility as well. And I do have the free version, so I don't even have the full version. So I can like carry, draw, and I can zoom in also, which is I really like for students who have some difficulty. Here are just some other kind of instructional supports. IXL will break down math tasks and other tasks. Brain and Camp and the Math Learning Center have virtual manipulatives, which is great. So just kind of some additional resources, more instructional technology. Note taking while reading, so I've kind of jumped around a little bit, but that task is really important. I'm embarrassed to say that I'm a big Google person, and I didn't know that this existed until like a couple of years ago. But this side toolbar here on Google Keep is amazing. So you can create, it's like an interactive sticky note board. But what I've been working with some teachers on is if you have a mnemonic strategy or a rubric or a checklist, right? You can create those, you can share them with students, and then you can prompt them to open up their sidebar. And then have it open so then they can check off once they've done it. And they can also kind of, as they're typing, remember the race strategy. What? I love it. And again, it was something where I was like, oh man, I didn't use that enough. Okay. So that's the other thing is when we're transitioning between tasks, this can be really challenging in a full classroom. I love Classroom Screen. This tool is an interactive, think about it as like a desktop, and it has a variety of different widgets down at the bottom, but can be really helpful to provide visual cues for your classroom. So if you're running a science lab, here you can have a visual timer up available. But there's a timer, there's a traffic light to kind of cue, like, all right, stop working. There's silence or noise levels, but you can take notes. You can see there's an automatic QR code generator. There's a dice. You can do a random name picker. It just has so many options that when you're teaching, instead of just like Googling things, it pulls them all up. And I do just have a link here to a bunch of visual timers because, like, they're awesome. Sometimes they can get distracting, but I find them to be very helpful for many students. All right. I apologize. I had some technical difficulties. So, here we are in monitoring classroom behavior. So, many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Class Dojo. You can also use Classroom Screen, right, to kind of monitor and add points to students or provide those visual supports. You can do a virtual marble jar. So, there's so many ways that technology can help support specific positive reinforcement. And Goblin Tools AI, I will say, is probably one of my favorites. This tool has a lot of different functions. I'm going to delete this right now so I can show you. So let's say I need to complete a science lab. So I can hit that. And then once I write my task, I hit this little magic wand. And then what it does is it breaks down that task into specific subtasks. And so it really provides a pretty good task analysis. So for those of you in special ed, right, it breaks down the task. For those of you in regular ed, this can be really helpful to provide support for a wide variety of students within your classroom. The other thing it does is you can do a time estimate. I can't tell you how often I work with students and they're like, oh yeah, I'll just like write my paper during study hall. And you're like, I don't think you will. So this one here then gives you a time estimate, right? So it says it's going to take you about 13 hours to work on your science lab. And you can adjust this as the teacher, but I find it's a great teaching strategy and helps them to kind of work with time management. But even you can, copy and paste this, use this as an assignment breakdown, like so many different options here. But then you can even go further, right? And I can go to a subtask and I can even break down a subtask if I want to. So, like, lots of potential here. So what I do want you to do is pause, explore at least one of the tools from slides 18 to 24. Again, discuss or write kind of how the tool can be integrated in your content area and how it supports UDL and removes barriers. So pause here and then come back. And what I want to share is that, so I use a Wakelet. This is how I share my bookmarks. So anything that I find, interesting tools, I have them all organized in categories. So you can feel free to follow me. And any tool that I find, like I have an AI bookmark, and so I keep things in there. So you can follow me if that's helpful for you or if you're motivated by technology. And then just remember, right? Student, environment, task, and then tool. But embrace the tools, embrace and using technology to support all students. But please provide feedback. So if you can scan this QR code with your phone, if you open up your camera, it should then work, where then there's a Google form for you to provide feedback to me. Because I'm really passionate in supporting all educators in utilizing assistive technology. So you can also click on the link in the presentation as well. But please provide feedback on how this helped you and if you're interested in learning more. And there's my email if you have any questions or follow-up. I'm here. But thank you so much for your time and have fun integrating tech.